EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Monday nightcap edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mack, John McMullen. We'll be live with you guys for the next couple of hours here as we recap day number 16 of Eagles training camp. Johnny Mack, moving right along here, brother. How you doing on this Monday evening?
Doing well. 2 more days, 2 more training camp practices. We're almost at the end.
It came and went pretty quick, didn't it, John?
It did not.
No? Didn't feel like it went quick for me?
It is an absolute grind made worse by the current preseason format of the NFL.
How much longer on this preseason format, John?
Well, when you get to 18 games, it'll go down to 2 at least. So that should happen pretty quickly. I'd love to see him get rid of them in general.
Yeah.
But they never will because they get the charge and all that stuff.
Yeah, no doubt about it, John. Good stuff. We got plenty of stuff to talk about here tonight, John. Coming off a weekend where they had a really ugly preseason game. They made a trade for John Metchie, and then they're back on the field today with all sorts of different changes. Today, we're going to recap everything for you guys. We'll give you some added commentary on the trade for John Metchie, on some of the stuff we saw from the preseason game. I've only had John briefly since some of these things have come. So we'll talk about all those different things tonight, but we will start on practice number 16 today. Johnny Mack, let's start right there. A little bit of rain, John, a little bit of chill today. Might have been a little bit cooler for you guys down there today, about an hour and 40-minute practice. Just your first couple thoughts, John. Vic Fangio day, as always. What was it like today, Monday, back at the NovaCare Complex for the last couple of days of camp here?
Yeah, pretty interesting from the standpoint of things keep expanding when it comes to the defensive backfield not contracting, which is weird at this stage. 16 days in, you finally get Cooper DeJean on the outside, which I think a lot of people are going to overreact to. He only did it in the base defense, which is obviously when there's only 4 defensive backs on the field, which the Eagles do very rarely. Vic said 160 or so times last year. And that's to keep them on the field for 3 downs. So the debate is whether to play him at outside corner or safety. Now, they played him 15 practices at safety before they took a look at him at outside corner. So bottom line is Eagles have confidence that Cooper can do anything inside, slot, outside. But before the practice, when Vic Fangio kind of threw us that curveball and said, watch today, when he was asked about why Cooper hasn't gotten any outside cornerback snaps, he was also, which I think a lot of people missed, he was also asked because things are not going that great when it comes to the outside corner position opposite Quinyon Mitchell. Is there any chance he can move there full time? And he basically said no, because they don't have anybody to play the slot.
Right.
So, he's got to play the slot in the nickel, which is where they're on the field, 75% of the time. So
did anybody follow up with what position are you more positioned to handle if you had to move them?
Well, he was asked what would it require to consider the full-time move outside,
right.
And he said someone to develop at the nickel position and someone not to develop at the corner position.
Well, it sounds like that's already happening.
Yeah, the back end.
Yeah, the back end.
But from the standpoint of Bennett, he just got here. I think there's still my bet would be on him long term, and by long term I mean this season, 4 games in, say, at least. At the latest, I should say. That would be my guess. But they don't have anybody to play the nickel. Their backup nickel was Brandon Johnson, who's undrafted from Oregon and got hurt. Mac McWilliams tried it out. Now he's back outside. Perry Nickerson's here, but he's going to get cut. They don't have anybody. So they're not going to move him outside right now. Long term, yeah, if they can get somebody outside the organization and free agency after this season, maybe. But yeah, I mean the movement today was the same base defense, so he's going to be on the field all the time. The question is, in those base snaps, is he playing safety or corner? I'd still lean more towards safety, but they're making sure he gets some reps at both spots.
Yeah, we'll see. John, speaking of the cornerback too, then if we just put Cooper DeJean, excuse me, to the side for a second, what'd you see at that position today? Where was Ringo? Where did he play today? What's the update on Adoree? What's the update on Bennett? What is the update on those three battling for that outside spot?
Well, Dory got most of the first team reps, and the ones he didn't get went to Mac McWilliams. Mac McWilliams. No first team reps for Keely Ringo or Jacorian Bennett. So, I mean, this is, it could be a conspiracy because I find it very hard to believe that Vic doesn't know who's going to play at this point. I find that very hard to believe.
And he even admitted to that today. At most times at this point in camp, you have somebody that you know who's going to be the answer.
Yeah, but I'm not buying that. That's a rare time I'm not buying it. I find it very hard to believe.
You think he's playing a little bit of the games right now because there's no finality, maybe. I'm not sure.
I think he's playing the games because he wants them to play in the preseason. He's a big rep in the preseason guy, and he's with an organization that doesn't believe in reps in the preseason. So if he sells it inside the building, admittedly, this is a bit of a conspiracy.
So you think this is deeper than just selling the media? You think he's selling top to bottom?
I think he's selling everybody. I got to look at these guys because he wants them to get reps. Whereas as you see by the offense, the Eagles don't want to give reps to their starters, period.
Right.
And he's going to get
by extension of that. Then, what do you make of the playing time that they've gotten? Because Keely Ringo is basically depleted. John, 16 practices later, the guy's not 2 practices in.
Oh no, he has played himself out of the job.
Is he out of it right now for you, or is he just a distant third?
He's out of it. He's out of the conversation.
Wow. Keely Ringo, who they came into camp wanting to win the job. They got rid of Darius Slay and Isaiah Rodgers because they felt comfortable with Keely Ringo. You're telling me 16 practices later, this guy's out of the running?
I think he's out. I think he's out of the running. I think it's Adoree or Jacorian Bennett ultimately will start. I would lean towards Jacorian. Now he's got to finish. He's got to play well. He just got here. And it might not be week 1 again, but it might be week 3. But by week 4, say, I think he'll be the guy. Yeah, I mean, Keely just hasn't performed well. And
good.
The other, Makuba Sydney got the first rep, but again, first rep watchers are often, Makuba got many more first team reps. So after his big 2 turnover performance, that looks like a sea change. He's going to be there. Jihad Campbell, it's just a matter of time. He's going to be there.
Yeah,
Zach Bond was back.
He had a pretty good practice today, Jihad Campbell.
Zach Bond was back today. So, and Trotter's had a good camp. He's not like Ringo, but I mean, ultimately, they want to get to Makuba. They want to get to Campbell, and
right.
The GPS story, I always say,
exactly, which I love, and I've continued to use it on other shows, John, and giving you credit for it. But I think that's the problem with Trotter. It's not anything that he's not playing well.
No, he has
not where they wanted to go. Yeah,
there's a big difference between Trotter and Ringo.
Right.
Ringo was this GPS setting, and he just blubbed it. So that's disappointing, but it's going to be an issue. You were never going to replace Slay. Now Isaiah Rodgers.
Yeah, but I'm now wondering, John. I mean, even me, and I know you're objective and you've always have been, so I'm not asking you to change. But as a fan and as somebody who's tried to remain optimistic, I can't help but wonder, okay, did we go too far here? I mean, we got rid of Slay, we got rid of all these other guys. And now 16 days into training camp, the guy that was supposed to take over for Darius Slay, who's a borderline Hall of Fame player, and Isaiah Rodgers, who played really good, and when he was out there last year, he's now completely lost the job to Adoree Jackson and a guy they traded for 11 days ago or 12, whatever it was, 13 days ago, maybe 2 weeks now.
Yeah, well, that's when you play poorly. That's where it goes. But you know, I didn't have a problem with them not signing Rodgers because they didn't think he was a starter. You know, because of some size deficiencies, and whatever he got, $7 million a year, whatever. You're not going to pay that for a backup. So I don't have necessarily a problem. Maybe they misevaluated the player, but and we'll see. But I think he'll have some issues playing full time because he is just size deficient. But you know, I mean, he'd probably be better than who's here. I would say that pretty concretely, but I don't know. I don't know if I want to pay what he got paid in free agency.
If Isaiah Rodgers was on this team right now, would he be the starting cornerback?
Yeah, I think so, but I think it'd still be deficient. And again, I don't want to pay that money to be deficient.
Well, what are you paying across the 4 dudes who are battling for it? Probably close to 7.
Not much.
No, not even
collectively. Ringo and Bennett are still on their rookie deals. McWilliams is a 5th round pick, and
so
Jackson
they're probably $1 million a pop, $3 million.
Jackson. So if you add all 4 of those guys, they're probably less than what Isaiah got.
Yeah, no. I'll take the guy that can play. How about that?
Well, I'm just saying, if you know, everything's about evaluation in this league, and they didn't think he was a starting corner. They loved him as a number 3 corner, but you don't pay number 3 corners like starters.
Well, built into that evaluation is that they thought Keely Ringo was a starting corner. And 16 practices later, Vic Fangio says, "No, sir, no can do."
Well,
not even
by the way,
anymore.
Vic didn't say that. I said that. But yeah, there was a hope that he could turn into a starting corner. Certainly.
Well, isn't that baked into the evaluation? If you move on from him, you know, and knowing, hey, I got Keely Ringo. Baked into my evaluation of Milton is, hey, I'm pretty confident in Ajomo. He might not be Milton, but I'm at least confident in him to play the role. Built into losing Slay and letting Rodgers walk, both of those guys, has to be, hey, I feel good about who we got there or about the plan that we have in place. Plan hasn't worked.
No, well, partially, but the money comes into it. The money's real. I mean, Slay was a pure cap casualty, you know, because of his age and his expense. Pure cap casualty.
Right, I get that. 10 mil. I understand. That one's more easy to understand at 36 years old for Slay.
Nobody is saying in that building that Keely Ringo could be Darius Slay. I guarantee you that. You know, maybe they're concerned about the age and slippage from Slay, but that was a pure cap casualty. Rodgers he got too much money. As I said, they sort of evaluated him as a 3rd corner. Would have loved to have had him. Same thing with Oren Burks, 3rd linebacker. Would have loved to have him back on a 1-year deal, but he got 2 years. Rodgers got decent money. So you make a decision. The business comes into it as well. And that's been the whole Eagles offseason. That's what it's been about. It's been about getting financial ducks in a row so they could sign Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith and Quinyon down the road and Cooper down the road. That's what the whole offseason was about.
Has this shifted you, John, too, that the corner is the biggest issue? Because it looks like the corner, it looks like Darius Slay, the guy could have been 45 for all I care. Looks like he's been the hardest guy for this team to replace. Now, Sweat, I think, is still yet to be determined, and that's probably the other one. But has it shifted for you at all that corner is becoming your biggest concern? Because it seems like it's Vic's biggest concern.
No, because there's 3 corners on the field, and I think the Eagles are really good at 2 of them.
That's true. That's true.
And Adoree Jackson, if you just bite the bullet, he'll at least play the right way and knows how to play. So, no, I'm still more concerned about edge rusher because there you don't have Quinyon and Cooper on the edge. Nolan, I think, is a good player.
Right.
But again, he's done it for a half year, and not that those guys doing it for closer to a full year is that much difference. But, Vic said today Nolan's been dealing with his shoulder again. I don't know if anybody caught that. But
yeah, I get. That's where I was going next when you're talking about the edge here. I mean, that's why he mentioned that's why he moved Jalen to the other side.
Yeah, because Nolan can't move to the right side because of his shoulder. I'm like, what the fuck? First of all, why isn't he sitting then? Why is he practicing? Was
Right.
my first question.
Meanwhile, AJ Brown's got. I mean, everybody's telling me AJ Brown's fine. This guy can't get on the practice field. I got serious worries about him. If they're being so cautious with players, why would they not be cautious with Nolan Smith?
Yeah, that's my thought. I'm like, I don't need him to be out there for training camp practices. So that was a little bit of a concern. But yeah, and then the back end. I mean, even if you want to count on Alex Hunt, and again, that's completely unproven, but he's shown some signs. He's got a big upside. You still don't have depth.
John, is this one of the ramifications of being a great football team is that the depth is depleted? Because Cilio pointed out to me on the show today, and he's right about this. He says, you guys love to say preseason doesn't matter. And okay, that's fine that the starters don't play. There's 53 men on your roster, 22 starters. Over half of your roster plays in those football games. The depth on this team, John, is not that good. It's not that good right now.
No, it's fair to after watching, I've said, the Browns, and I wrote about it, the Browns had a very productive week here, very productive from their standpoint. And except against the inside zone in the running game of the Eagles, but everything else, very productive. And they won 3 games last year. Now they're better than that. We know they had some issues at quarterback and yada, yada, yada. Still have issues at quarterback, but they have some talented players. We talked about them when they're here, starting with Miles, but Eagles are supposed to be a hell of a lot better than Cleveland. Well, guess what? From that 23 to 53, not that big of a difference. Yeah. And I've been saying that for years in the NFL.
Yes, you have, John. Yes, you have.
Not that big of a difference. And I think people get caught up in and the Eagles have done a better job than most with developmental guys and guys stepping in. But remember how healthy the Eagles were last year. If the wrong guy, and that's every team, but if the wrong guys get injured, you probably going to have some problems.
We'll see what happens. Johnny Mac, great stuff. We're going to have a great show here tonight. Plenty of things to talk about. Day 16 in the books. We'll recap everything in that regard. I want to welcome and thank everybody for being here this evening. We got a nightcap edition of Birds 365. Good to see everybody in here. Jason A-Team, ZM Prince. I know we got some super chats we'll get to as well. Billy John's in here. ZM, what's going on, everybody? Good to see all of you guys. Hit that like button. Drop your comments in the chat. We will be taking some comments on the show tonight, as we always do. We'll make sure all super chats go to the top. Hit that like button. And if you're listening onto the podcast, leave a review, whatever you got to do over there as well to help us grow. So we appreciate everybody for being here tonight. Couple super chats that we'll get to in a little bit. John, what was the injury report here on practice today? Let's kind of reset the slate. Day 16. Who missed practice today from camp?
Well, the biggest news was Zach Bond was back in team drills for the first time since probably whatever it was, day 2 or day 3 when he went out. So that was the biggest news. Kenyon Green was back as well, but just limited, didn't work in team drills yet. So guys who didn't practice, AJ, Landon, obviously, Tariq Castro Fields, who's got a hamstring from the game. Lewis Seen's got a groin. That he hurt that before the game. Brandon Johnson hurt his groin in the game, another corner. So they were down a little bit from the corner standpoint. And then, as I mentioned, Kenyon Green was limited. AJ Woods, another corner, was limited with an illness. Lane Johnson was limited. Didn't take part in team drills, just a rest day for Lane. So pretty short again. And for the most part, the Eagles have been gotten through camp pretty well. Just being cautious with some players, and lone exception being Landon Dickerson, and that could have went really bad, and it didn't.
The cautious excuse is starting to wear off for me with AJ Brown, John.
Well, I don't know why. I mean, he doesn't need to be out there. He doesn't need to be out there. As long as he's out there.
Yeah, but why does he not need to be? Why keep him on the bench if everything's okay?
Well, they're not making up the injury. He tweaked his hamstring. I'm saying, if he was healthy, he'd be out there. I'm saying, same thing with Zach Bond. I said same people were saying with Zach Bond. They were just being ultra cautious. Now that he feels 100%, he's back. Now, if AJ is not back when the Jets game is over, and they get into preparation for Dallas, then it's time to start worrying about week 1. But it's not long-term or anything of that. The guy, he's out there every day. He's watching practice today was throwing passes to the other receivers. If it were serious, he wouldn't be on the field. They don't let seriously injured people on the field because they might get hurt. It's not a big deal. This happens all across the league now, and this is again why preseason football has been just ridiculously watered down. Because if you have a star player and he's got a hangnail, you're gonna rest him. You're gonna keep him out. So he did tweak his hamstring. They're not just making up an injury, but they're not going to put him out there until he's feeling 100%.
Did the trade for John Metchie have anything to do with AJ Brown?
I don't think so. I mean, he'll be here tomorrow. They made the trade official today. I don't think I think people are I think they're going back to 4 years ago in Alabama. I mean, he's been through a lot. But the bottom line, and he's a good story just to be back, but the bottom line is he's got 40 receptions over 2 years. This is not some splash-making wide receiver coming in. This is a guy.
Well, no, I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying if AJ Brown was healthy, this is not obviously a position we expected them to trade for. He's missed all of camp now, or most of camp. Missed all the joint practice work, which is the most important work of the summer. Didn't really work out with Jalen Hurts all offseason. I'm trying to put it all together, and it kind of points to, hey, maybe AJ Brown is a little bit more banged up than they're letting us believe.
My take on the Metchie trade, and we'll probably get to talk to him tomorrow, but my take on it is he was going to get cut in Houston. Harrison was going to get cut here. Howie liked him from the draft process. Bring him in, see what happens. That's
which I can see. I mean, because we knew Brian was going out the door anyway. So
that's the whole thing. He was getting cut down there. Nick Cesario and Howie are very close. He was getting cut down there. Harrison was getting cut up. They're one of their tight ends tore an ACL, so they needed a tight end. In a lot of ways, Howie was doing Harrison Bryant a favor. That factored into it as well,
right?
Because he probably has respect for him. I don't think this deal is nearly as big as most people have made it out to be.
Yeah, well, let's see. Hopefully that is the case. We'll talk a little bit about the trade for John Metchie later on in the program. Good stuff. Hopefully A.J. Brown is all good. I'll tell you this, Eagles fans, this team needs him. This team needs him, no doubt about it. John, let's get back into practice a little bit as well. We spoke about the cornerback panel in the start. I don't want to think about corners for a second, John. Going to the safety, Andrew McCuba obviously had the big preseason game, and then with that came a bigger responsibility today in practice with the first team reps. What'd you see between the battle of Sidney Brown and Andrew McCuba for that safety spot?
Well, I think it's all about time, and Drew got much more time. I don't think it's looking good for Sidney, and I think it's one of those things, I wanted to ask, I think I said on the morning show, I wanted to ask Vic, and I did, about how he weighs the turnovers, because there weren't really playmaking turnovers. They were, and God bless Vic, he went right to it. He went right to it.
Yep.
Yeah. He said the interception was obviously a good play. And then was talking about their part being so bad, but that's not our problem, he said. It's when you have an opportunity to make a play, you got to make the catch and you got to run with it. So it was a good play, he said. The fumble recovery obviously was, again, a botch on their part, but some guys have a knack for it. So he went to the knack, and that's where Nick went as well after the game. He does have a knack for it if you go back to college. Some guys do. Some guys just take the football away. And hopefully that's Drew McCuba. But I was interested to hear how Vic saw it. He saw it the exact same way I did. But he wants to play Drew McCuba, so you can use that as, hey, guys making plays.
All right.
And he's out there, by far more reps than Sidney. So all he has to do now is finish it, Drew McCuba. I think there was a significant sea change at safety, and I think Drew is now clearly the favorite to be the Week 1 starter.
You think he's ready to handle that John McCuba? How's he look?
I don't know. He's got size limitations. He's gotten beat up by big tight ends in camp, both, Dallas on his team, and then Njoku, and who's, a monster, and Harold Fannin, who's not, or also did some nice things. So I think there's going to be some issues, but they like his coverage ability. They like his instincts. They like how comfortable he is in space. He doesn't panic. A lot of safeties panic when they're in space. He's very comfortable with that because he is, probably dating back to his history as a nickel corner in Clemson, at Clemson. So, yeah, he's what Vic wants, and it's understandable. He wants a covered safety. He's got a covered safety. Now we got to see if they mask what he can't do.
Right. I think Vic's going to be willing to deal with some of those growing pains early with him because he feels like the upside of the player fits what he wants to do better.
Yeah, exactly. So, and we'll see. And maybe, he piecemeals it. I brought that up because Sidney's much better going downhill. I think in the red zone or short yardage, or, I think he might bring in Sidney and do it that way. But we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah, we will. No doubt about it. Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. John, continuing to move down. We'll get to all the super chats. I want to thank everybody again for the super chats. They go a long way, so we appreciate all of you guys, especially you, Prince. Thank you, Prince. Let's go to linebacker, John. You mentioned it earlier in the show. I read today Jihad Campbell had another pretty good practice today. Jeremiah Trotter was still the first-team linebacker up next to Zach Bond. What'd you see in that position group today? You pointed out only a matter of time. I'm wondering when that time comes, Johnny Mac.
Yeah, Jihad's just got such a huge upside. You want to get him on the field. The only question is it sub package early or full all ball linebacker? He still struggles some in coverage. Grant Calcaterra got him pretty good today. That would be my biggest concern. I think Trotter's much more instinctive, but I don't think that matters as much when Zach Baughn's on the field. Boy, but my one concern is like I want Zach Baughan in Jahad Campbell's position. Like I don't want Zach Baughan to be the foundational, the guy who's got to stay home, the guy who's got to make sure everybody's lining up correctly. The quarterback.
You want Zach Baughan going and making plays.
Yeah.
Someone else dealing with that.
So I might be the only one, but I'd rather start with Trotter and Baughan for that reason. And I would let Trotter play middle, if he can, play middle linebacker, and let Zach sort of be the playmaker who can do everything. But they want the two guys with it, which is understandable.
Do you think that's a possible outcome even this year, though? Like, I don't know. Do you think Campbell will eventually get to that point? Maybe a couple years, but what about 2025? I mean, if you think that's a better role for Baughan, I would assume Vic's thinking might be similar. How do you get him in that role this year?
No, I mean, Vic has said it. He's, Jahad's not playing middle linebacker, period. End of sentence.
Right.
It's going to be Zach. So
Baughan did do it late in the year last year, right? And through the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Oh, he can do it. There's no doubt he can do it. And he was still making plays in that whole run.
Right.
So.
Right.
But, over a full, the Eagles hope 20 plus games. I'd rather have him be the guy who has a little bit more freedom. But it's a nice problem to have if you got two guys that can do that.
We'll see what ends up happening there. Johnny Mack continuing to move along left guard today. John, is it still Brett Toth? I tell you what, and we're going to talk about this offensive line, and we've talked about the depth on the offensive line and how many players they got and all these different things. Yeah, not their best showing on the weekend, John. John, I'm not sure what to make of it. What'd you see from left guard today? Then we'll talk about some of the depth problems or lack thereof at the offensive line.
Yeah, it was Brett again, but Darren Kennard mixed in with the first team for the first time. So I do think if Landon's not able to go, and there still hopefully will be, I still think it's more likely to be Darren Kennard for the short term than Brett Toth. Not that that's gonna make people sleep well, but I still think that's the way they would go. The Eagles have an interesting conundrum with their backup offensive lineman because they want to work with Miles Hinton, but he's not ready to play. They want to work with Cameron Williams, but he's not ready to play. And Drew Kendall's probably okay. That's not a worry, but you feel like you got to keep these guys on the 53, and all of a sudden it's like, oh boy, if they have to actually play in the short term, and that's why you have to hope for health. But Kendall Lamb, Matt Pryor's only been playing the right side. You prefer to have a swing tackle, and I'm not sure he can play left tackle. So then you got to carry a left tackle, which would be Lamb. How many offensive linemen they're going to carry? It's like, again, it's a nice problem to have, but a bunch of those young guys aren't ready to play.
Who are the best backups right now? Like last year, you got significant reps when Steen was a reserve player. He was pretty good in that role. And then you had Fred Johnson, who played excellent when he was needed last year. Who do you think will be that this year? Because I don't know. I mean, I know we've talked about how many guys they have in the room, but are they as good? I don't know. They don't look that good in the preseason, but that's the preseason.
I don't think they're as good as they were last year with the game day roster. Because you generally have an interior backup and a swing tackle. Now, this year, in theory, they would have to use Pryor and Lamb for the tackles because one can't play left, one can't play right. Kennard's probably he's probably Tyler Steen this year, and Kendall's a better backup center than they had. But they had to move Landon to center, which they don't want to do, but he's their best center anyway, so it worked out. So depends how you look at it. Yeah, they're probably better last year because Fred could do both. But Matt Pryor's better than Fred, but he only plays one side.
Right.
So it depends how you look at it.
Yeah, definitely different ways to slice it. John, any other notes from practice today? I did read that Jalen Hurts, let's give the quarterback one update. I did read that Jalen Hurts had a pretty good bounce back practice today. Again, we don't put much stock when he doesn't have a great day. I'm not going to sit here and put too much stock when he has a good day. But by what I read, he had a better day today at camp. What'd you see from QB1?
No predator on ice skates, skating through the grass.
Right.
So yeah, he looked a lot better. Yeah, that was Cam's description of Myles Garrett.
Right.
Yeah, that was the difference. And when when he's not getting harassed from a split second after the snap, he's fine.
John, I'll read this from our boy Brandon Lee Gowton. All right, don't take it from me. Now I've been on this camp, but I'm not the one saying this. And I quote: Darius Cooper needs to be on this roster. In addition to making back-to-back catches against Ringo from throws by Tanner McKee, Cooper had a reception for a chunk gain while working with the first-team offense. End quote. BLG saying Darius Cooper needs to be on this roster. What do you think, John?
Yeah, well, a lot of people say that. He's hardly alone. I've just talked to some people that indicate he's got a lot of work to do. So I think, but clearly he's opened a lot of eyes, and he's a guy that the Eagles are, they want to work. They've all said, and what they've said publicly, Kevin Patullo has said, and both Aaron Moorhead, both of them, it was almost eerie. They both said similar things. They said, we'll see where it goes. They're very interested in working with them and trying to continue. One of the things I was told, which I did not know, at Tarleton State, they never used a huddle ever. And he literally needed to be taught how to break the huddle and make sure his alignments and all that stuff. So there's a lot of fundamental stuff that he's behind the 8 ball with, but the playmaking skill, that's the part that everybody sees, and that's the part that everybody's judging. And he keeps making plays. He embarrassed Ringo. Ringo was, bad body language after the second one, those back-to-back catches he was talking about. And the pass, the layered, it was like a cover 2 hole throw, turkey hole throw, as John Gruden would say. And that was in between Quignon and Reed with the first team. So that was a hell of a throw too by Jalen. You got to give Jalen credit. Because he put it, that's a difficult layered throw. But no, he's making plays, but it's just some of the other stuff that I've been told about that he's probably not ready to do. But they want to keep developing him. The question is, how do you do it? Can you get him through waivers? That's really Howie's decision.
Well, your original thinking was that you thought they would get him through waivers. Has that shifted?
Yeah.
Or do you still?
Oh no, because he didn't do, remember, nobody's there watching practice except us. He didn't play well, and it had nothing to do with him. I shouldn't say that. They had 55 yards passing against Cleveland. The quarterbacks couldn't get the ball to anybody. So, if you go back to week 1, he made a bunch of plays, and then you start to be concerned because that's what people around the league see. And then you say, well, but my thought process and why I think he'd get through waivers is wide receiver is a position that is just littered around the NFL. Now, there's a big difference. I'm not talking about the A.J. Browns and the Jamar Chases, but there's a bunch of, like, Houston just traded John Metchie because he was going to get cut.
Right.
Like everybody's got receivers. It's not a position where you're looking a lot. Now you might want to improve. And I'm taught there's a big difference between guys like AJ and Metchie, but you know, there's a bunch of receivers. And the other teams haven't been working with Darius. So I think they would get him through waivers. But if they don't want to risk it, they shouldn't have traded. They shouldn't have traded for John Metchie. I'll tell you that.
Right.
You know, so
I think a team with a less pressurized situation, John, maybe a team that's not contending for a Super Bowl this year, where they're like, hey, this guy's got some talent and he's really raw. Maybe he can become a wide receiver for us. You know, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I think there has been a lot of excitement about him, and maybe that would go into the factor of whether they moved on from him or whether they kept him on the 53. We'll see what they end up doing. John, other notes on practice. I read today about a kerfuffle with Jalen Carter and Cam Jurgens. Carter evidently had a pretty good practice, but what happened there? What'd you see?
Cam got him on the ground once, and then Jalen took exception to it, and the next play kind of took a swipe at him. Then he kicked the football a little bit. So I wouldn't, you know, there's no fights, but you know, this is the time where you've been going against, you know, your own team for, you know, what are we at 16 practices? So 14 of them against your own team. Guys are getting sick of each other.
Yeah, right.
And you have some of that, but yeah, I don't, it wasn't like a fight or anything.
A little grown men playing some football, John. Gotta love. Yeah, but that's good. Jalen Carter had a good day. A couple other notes today. McCord apparently had a pretty good day built on his summer or so far. I don't know. That wide receiver 3 spot, John, made me a little nervous based on that Saturday game.
Yeah, the quarterbacks look bad, but a lot of that is third team reps. I talk about it all the time. There's shit show all over the league, because you got a bunch of bad offensive linemen. In the case of the Eagles, they got a bunch of guys who can't even snap the football. So and that happened again today. Poor Kyle McCord is playing shortstop before he's playing quarterback. He's got to play shortstop and catch the snap before he plays quarterback. I mean, that throws off the timing. They become uncomfortable. Same thing happened with Thompson Robinson in the game. But yeah, they had a longer developmental period than they typically do today. So got to see a little bit more of Kyle, and he certainly did better than Dorian today. But it's really tough to, like, I know a lot of people said you got to cut them both and bring in a third. I can't say that, because if they got reps with the second team, it would look completely different. Forget about the first team.
Right.
But it would look completely different. And that's where the Eagles have to do things behind the scenes, and they understand.
I think they're just going to keep McCord. I mean, how many times are they going to have to use quarterback 3?
No, well, if you're using your third quarterback, you're screwed.
You're screwed.
Everybody.
I think they're going to keep it simple, stick to the draft pick there, move on from the other guy, Dorian Thompson.
But I don't get too worked up about bad third team reps.
No, I don't
expect them to be.
Yeah. Well, we pride ourselves on talking about everybody. I do want to hit on all the front side.
I talk about everybody, but I just want to emphasize to the people, I wouldn't be too worried about 55 passing yards in the game. They you know, it was just as much the offensive line's fault as the quarterback's fault, is all I'm trying to say.
Made me think our offensive line depth isn't as good as we thought. Let's go to some super chats. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. We got a couple of good super chats. We'll get to them right now. Hit that like button, drop your comments in the chat. All super chats go to the top. Appreciate all of you guys for being here. Jason, A-Team checks in. Hit that like button, JAKIB fam. Thank you, Big Z. Jason, thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here as always, brother. Carson Deniston checks in. More comfortable with Bradbury or Ringo? Well, one guy made All-Pro and one guy can't.
Yeah, one guy was a second-team All-Pro. Come on, dude. Did people forget that quickly? When the Eagles went to Super Bowl 57, Bradbury was freaking awesome.
Yeah. He was good that year. I'm going to take Bradbury, Carson. Thank you, brother. Brian Fleming checks in. What's up, Fleming? He says, J-Mac, are you going to dunk on Pumper because his boys Sid Vicious and the Dingo ate my baby are hot garbage and will lose jobs again?
Well, I don't think. Who's Dingo? I don't know. Who's
Ringo.
Dingo?
He's saying.
Oh, Ringo. All right. Yeah, I got it now. I missed it. Yeah, Sydney. Yeah, they haven't played well. Well, no, Ringo hasn't played well. Sydney's been fine. Sydney is just, I think, not a fit for what Vic wants to do. But I don't think Sydney has played poorly at all. Ringo's played poorly.
Yeah, I don't think I think Vic would prefer Drew, but as John just said, so we'll say. Jason 18 again. What's up, Jason? Thanks, dude. I know we want to win now again, but it's almost obvious the Eagles are not as worried about 25 as they are for 26 and 27. Metchie trade, I'm worried about AJ. What do you think about that? The 25 versus the future thing.
Well, I think I've said that in the past. I don't think they have the same sense of urgency they had last year when they're coming off the collapse and trying to go win the Super Bowl. I don't think they have that same sense of urgency.
But do you think it is partly mostly by circumstance where like they literally can't really spend money because of where they are in terms of
they had too many good players. And yeah, they look at things. It's not about 1 year. It's about really 3-year increments. And they knew what was coming. And then you have to, so it's not really is Slay, or even Isaiah Rodgers better than Ringo. It's all right. We got to clear the decks because Quinion and Cooper are coming. It's not that they didn't like Milton Williams, because I can tell you they like Milton Williams as player, but they got to clear the decks for Jalen Carter. And even Josh Sweat, you got to clear the decks for Nolan Smith if everything goes correctly.
I'm going to be patient on Nolan Smith.
Yeah, I'm saying if everything goes correctly, but you have to trust your valuation. You think he's going to be a good player. It doesn't always work, but for the most part, they got a pretty good batting average. And that's what it's about. But the lesser sense of urgency, I think that's just human nature. That's one of the difficulties of winning. You feel satisfied, and it's not they're objectively feeling satisfied. They just won. So you let out a sigh of relief and you say, all right, well, we got one. I got 2 in the bank.
Different story for sure.
Yeah, you can't shit on me too much, although people will. They were booing in the preseason game.
That's great. Fucking boo them. How you do anything is how you do everything. We want to win, John. Got it. 18, appreciate it, brother. JD3 says, why is Howie out here doing charity? Dude is gifting Houston a Super Bowl. Shout out to all the lames celebrating my demise yesterday. Rest in peace, HB85.
Well, I admire. Yeah, I don't think he handed him a Super Bowl.
No, I certainly don't think that.
I think Houston, essentially the Eagles traded C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Harrison Bryant for Kenyon Green and John Metchie. I think Houston got the best of that.
They definitely got the best of that.
But it's all because of one player.
It's
nothing to do.
Silver platter.
Nothing to do with Harrison Bryant.
Yeah, right. All right, good stuff, JD. Appreciate you being here, brother. And I'm sorry for your loss of Harrison Bryant. I know he was one of the main.
I warned you, JD. I warned you.
John's always been honest with you, JD. Prince checking in. What up, Prince? Prince has his panties in a bind in the chat tonight, John. We had more questions last season, he says. The problem is that we won the Super Bowl, so everyone's paranoia is heightened. I'm a fairy, LOL, Zander. Stop crying. Holy moly. Prince is on the attack tonight, John.
Yeah. Well, it's fair to say, like, we didn't know who Zach Bond was. So it's fair to point that out. We didn't really know what Quinion Mitchell was or Cooper DeJean, other than they were talented rookies with potential, but you don't expect rookies to play the way that they played. So there's a bunch of stuff that nobody knew, so from that standpoint, if you want to bet on it happening again. I guess you can, but I'm an odds guy, and that stuff generally doesn't happen. You generally don't sign somebody for $3.5 million and he's top 5 in defensive player of the year voting. That doesn't happen very often.
Right.
But it happens. So I've heard a lot of people say, hey, maybe that happens. So Jolari. I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't bet on it.
We'll see. I agree with you on that front, John. J-Mac for president. Look at this. AKA this guy made his whole name, J-Mac for president. Appreciate you, brother. He says, I just wanted to say, I think we're fine at cornerback, free safety, and on the edge, and I'm definitely not worried about the linebacker spot. I honestly think the D will be better.
Oh, boy.
J-Mac for president.
Well, I appreciate that.
You listen to John.
But I'm going to, yeah. I mean, the Eagles had the #1 defense in the NFL for the first time since Bud Carson was here last year. They kept Kansas City from crossing the 50-yard line in the Super Bowl for 9 consecutive drives, which had happened exactly 0 times in the entire season in any game. Never happened before in the entire season in any game. And think about how many shitty teams are playing shitty games again, and they still managed to get it past the 50-yard line. Boy, again, I'm an odds guy. So you're going to tell me they're going to go back-to-back #1 defenses after going whatever it was, 30-plus years without a #1 defense? And then play like that in the Super Bowl? I don't think they're going to be better. Will it be good enough? Maybe. Will it be better? Hell no.
J-Mac for president also gifted 5 memberships. So that we love. We appreciate you, brother. We appreciate the support of the channel as always. And always good to be, J-Mac for president. When you get taken to school by J-Mac, it's always a good day. All right. So there's positive in that, J-Mac. Appreciate you doing it. Appreciate everybody for being here tonight. Hit that like button, everybody. We'll take a quick commercial break. A good recap of day number 16 of training camp practice today. Not sure what's going on at the cornerback spot. Not feeling good about that. But overall, everything else feeling pretty good about on that front. We'll come back. We got plenty more to talk about tonight. Hour number 2 of Birds 365 coming up next.